Protect your crypto with the ultimate security solution, a hardware wallet. Say goodbye to sleepless nights worrying about hacks or theft. Secure it with a hardware wallet today. IsoShop, your #1 authorized reseller for Philippines.
Seeing the numbers right now, I'm so happy. I think you guys have 1,400 registered participants.
In the blockchain space, there's so much opportunities for people to bring their ideas.
So kung meron kang pera, you want to be wealthy in your lifetime, kailangan mo mag-zero in dun sa mga new technology. Us as traders, no, as forever students of the market, kailangan tayo renegable.
Why are we into Bitcoin? It's because we genuinely believe that humanity needs a better form of money that is not dollars or pesos or any of these things. We want money that we can actually hold on to, and this will be our life savings, and it will maintain its value against the things we want.
Welcome to another episode of Web3 Weekly, brought to you by Muzegan. And I couldn't be more excited to introduce our next guest. His name is Davey Thomas, and Davey is not only a friend, but a renaissance man when it comes to cybersecurity and Web3. And I want to bring Davey onto the stage now so that Davey can give a Web3 hacker's perspective to all our listeners out there. So without further ado, Davey.
What's up, everybody? Nick, what's going on, man?
How you doing, man? You know how excited I am for this conversation? It's
man, me too. Yeah, super rad. Very cool.
So Davey, right? Like let's set the table. Let's try to give our listeners out there one or two sentences. Make it spicy, What's Qualu? And then later we can jump into you and your origin story. But
cool.
Let us first know what you're doing currently in this space and what brought you here.
All right. Well, Qualu is an amazing project. A company here in Southeast Asia is putting a global network that's going to be able to measure the internet in a way that hasn't been done before. Enabling providers, ISPs, even just everyday user, anyone, to leverage new insights. New global intelligence is going to help fix a lot of problems that exist and help push the edge to be able to help get internet to users that don't already have it.
Right.
And help companies make those decisions to help get the networks built. Those insights, that data aggregate, that's our real bread and butter.
Right. Right. there's a
Yeah.
lot of things in there that are very similar to a lot of what other people are looking at right now in Web3. But I mean, when you say measure the internet, right? Like,
Sure.
what do you mean by that? And then also, like, how, like, what measures took you to Kualu, right? Like, how did you find Kualu?
Oh
But
wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
curious to hear about like how it does impact the everyday user, and then how measuring the internet is something that we need to get people to care about.
Absolutely. Well, the stuff that doesn't impact the everyday user as far as our data goes impacts the everyday user. It ends up doing it anyway, because data that really big providers or ISPs would want to look at, that's going to help them make decisions, optimize the network, fix the network, or even expand it in a way that helps users all over the world. And so all of it helps users. It's a utility for everyone. It's just a
Right.
connection of a bunch of networks that everyone connects together. It should be better than it is, but I mean, we've only been doing it the way we're doing it for X long, right?
And what's your role? What's your role at Kualu for everyone out there?
Well, I do a lot of things, which I enjoy, but right now I'm the CISO, the Chief Information Security Officer.
Okay.
I help with some of the dev, general hacking, mischief, and random projects, events, research, anything, IT support, anything Kualu needs,
Right.
Yeah.
So then
Computers,
what
snacks.
computers? Yeah. So what do now, right? Like what brought you to Kualu from a hacker's perspective, or maybe a DPEN perspective, or just a security perspective? Like, what drew you to
Sure.
Kualu?
It's kind of all of that together. Honestly, our founder, like, he just had a rad idea. Sometimes it's about what can you build, what will be the real result, what's the impact.
Sure.
You talk to a lot of startups out there, and they've got a lot of the same path, the same journey, a lot of the same dev time, even if they're building things that are very different, right? The act of getting those groups together and doing cool stuff. So for me, I think it was about, like, is the project really going to do something really massive, and will I get to work with the right people? Is it cool, right? And Keith, our founder, man, it's a great idea. It's an idea born out of a lot of experience he's had working all over the world with fixing national problems with the internet. So like
Web3,
I'm into that.
Predating DPEN. Yeah.
Well, yeah, absolutely. What's interesting is he and I both did stuff with what you could call a distributed node network. Some box that you put in a bunch of places to affect some action. For him, he's testing networks all over the world, interconnectivity, protocols, you name it, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was security-based stuff, network monitoring, systems monitoring, open source intelligence, all kinds of things. But the architecture to make that stuff work was way pre-DPIN, what you would call a modern decentralized node network, something based on Web3.
Sure.
So what was rad is that I really understood what he was trying to do from a non-Web3 perspective, and why it's just so important that it get built, and when he explained the Web3 community part of it, how to really get people behind it in a way, like that's what sold it for me, honestly.
Yeah, you almost needed the culture to catch up with the technology. Yeah, you need, like, it's symbiotic, right? But you mentioned a bit about, like, how Kualu was also, like, pre Web3 with its understanding of the telecom shortcomings or ways of working. And then you mentioned how from your security background you found Kualu. But walk me through how you found Web3, right? What was the bridge, or what got you there? What was the catalyst, or meme coin or whatever that brought you on board?
Well, I was messing with decentralized technologies when people were buying pizza with Bitcoin, long ago in the caveman days, when data centers were this big and everyone walked uphill to work, kind of thing. But long and short of it is that doing ATM network security for new exchanges, all kinds of new projects were popping up around that time. And that's how I initially got into it. It was more from a operational security perspective and a bit of dev. And with Kualu, it was a totally different thing, because he was like, hey, it's going to go like this. This is how it's going to grow and build, and this is all we have to do. And it's a huge challenge, but it's also extremely feasible to build. It's rad, and we're already seeing really great results with what's been built so far. And I think
Nice.
that's probably the most exciting thing about it, you know?
Oh, yeah,
Put them out there.
absolutely. And because it's creating a global impact, right? For the greater good.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's,
well, I mean,
yeah, go.
yeah, we're using it to do tests already. You know, we've gotten some really cool results for a few different things, and I think that at this point in the dev cycle and everything going on, I mean, couldn't be happier. You know, so we've got a couple of big launches coming up soon, which everyone's obviously really pumped about. And so I think that for us, you know, circling around on the security part of it is more, you know, obviously secure the product, but also, you know, secure the company, the entity, you know, exist in
Absolutely.
Web3 with everything that comes with, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And with everything that comes with it, unfortunately, it could be scams, right? And for our users out there, whether you're new to Web3, like Oscar, who has a question in the chat, you know, understand that like with this responsibility, it's kind of like Spider-Man, right? With this responsibility or whatever, like comes like a level of autonomy and security that you have to keep up with. And you're responsible for you. If you want to bank the unbank and be your own bank, then there's a lot of pitfalls that people fall into. And I wonder what it feels like to be on the security side of things, David, because like it's almost like being an IT department at a tech company or a school, where anytime someone loses their private keys or does something that actually gives people greater ownership over their own assets, I wonder how often they blame it on security or a lack of security when actually it just becomes a user / education problem, right? Which is something that I know Qualu is doing, where they're trying to fix, like, and educate and, you know, like kind of bring people into the deep end space, even though they were deep end before deep end, right? I think education's a massive part in it. And I think like you on the security side probably get a lot of those kind of, or maybe not, like, what do you get when, you know, do you have misconceptions for security in Web3, or do you have to find yourself advocating for it because of the stigma around it being scams, being you know, an early industry that is not necessarily mature?
Well, that was a lot, but I would say this. I mean, there's already a lot of fantastic information out there from really experienced people in Web3 on people's personal operational security. If it's your keys in your wallet, your bank, your life, you got to protect them. You got to lock stuff up. You got to maintain good passwords. There's just things you need to do that are the not fun part of running a bank, being your own bank.
Yeah.
When you get into it being for a company, it gets more difficult. You need to put more processes in place to track all the things that you're doing and why. And so there's a lot of people out there. I think a big misconception is that Web3 is really insecure just because there's so much news of people having problems and having issues.
Sure. Yeah.
You gotta understand that's still cropped up on top of just a ton of people that encrypt their stuff and maintain good passwords and follow a pretty simple playbook, and they can still get got. A target attack can come for anyone, right?
Really? Yeah.
But for the most of the junk out there, you can defeat with just proper practices. Is the good news for most people. The bad news is that it's a lot of tedium. It's not a cool tool. It's not some awesome animated thing that shows you what's going on. It's, did you remember to update this? Did you remember to change this and that? Yeah, I think that's the real reality of it.
Absolutely. There's like a battle between like inner conflict and outer culture, right?
Sure.
And that brings me into like the next question, right? Like there are in every space, every emerging space, there are good actors and bad actors, right? Let's talk about blockchain's biggest enemies right now, from a security standpoint or just from a overall industry standpoint. What's your take on that?
Well, I mean, I think statistically, like companies versus the public, the thing with companies is still insider threat represents a massive percentage of what happens attack wise, entity to entity, as these different these different cases transpire. And I think the real issue with that is that you can only do but so much, and it's vigilance, it's proper security controls. Barring that, and just having a problem of just not being vigilant enough internally, there's the players. I mean, you've got law enforcement that are empowered by weaponized policy that enables them to do some pretty nifty stuff. And if they're targeting you and working around the clock, they're going to find a way to crack you or crack someone that is involved in your network, as we see time and time again, right?
For sure.
So obviously law enforcement is a big one. If they open stuff up, other hackers can, use that, criminals, that kind of thing. And therein lies the theft. The other right now, which is really interesting, even in recent news, is North Korea. They represent the large majority of really well orchestrated targeted attacks. It is a double-digit addition to their GDP and affects their nuclear program. So you have the Americans entering stage at this point. They're out looking for scammers that might be part of rings that are in fact, run by the North Korean military or intelligence services. So the environment is getting kind of gnarly for the everyday user. But again, the good news is a lot of just basic practices and controls will mitigate a lot of that.
Sure. But would you say it's like a Web3 space race right now, or crypto space race? Like in terms of like what you're seeing in terms of not just security, right? But you're talking about lots of money, trillions and trillions of dollars on the market.
Yeah. I mean,
and from a security perspective, do you see this as the next thing that everyone's working in their own respective silo in their own respective country, when we actually should be moving towards more of like a collaborative approach to something, you know what I mean, instead of fragmenting off? I mean, I don't know, just my 2 cents on that. Are you there, man?
Huh? Hey.
Oh, David got disconnected. No worries.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
Did you catch any of that?
I did. I heard all of that. Can you still hear me? Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I mean, wait, hit me with that last part again. You cut off. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay.
I'm echoing right now.
I
Coming
see.
through on the line.
Right.
Anyways, we're talking. Echoes rough.
We're talking a little bit about how actually, I can't really do it. Hold on. There's so many echoes right now.
Really?
David, do you hear me once or 2 or 3 times?
Just one time.
Oh wow.
Tell me. The echoes on your end. No worries, man. No judgment. I'll just have to think of the question. But we were talking about culture and conflict, right? We're talking about how the Web3 is becoming the new space race. It's becoming the new moon mission in order to kind of get the edge on someone else, because there's so much money, there's so much liquidity, there's so many new emerging assets happening, and it's a domino effect. When you see one country fall and loosen up regulations, a lot of others follow suit as well. And that to me, I think, is something that is like creating this very interesting polarization, culture and conflict, right? And then it goes back into like sentiment, education, the state of user security, because like it's so easy for them to just blame it on whatever happens to, like, again, you lose your keys or you don't understand how a ledger works. There are a lot of things there that I think are self-inflicted, and I think it's like not the securities guy's job to figure that out, but it's actually the job of like the community. If you want decentralization, then the education has to be decentralized, and Kualu's starting to do that with its connectivity issues, right? But we have to move away from like the enemies and how we're like player versus player, and move into more of like a player support player, or you know what I mean? Because it's really not conducive for mass adoption.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sorry, I lost you there towards a bit. Yeah, I mean, I think if you compare the Web3 industry to, say, normal banking, right? we're not there yet. And, traditional banks, they have really great networks where if they think something's sketchy, they'll try to get ahead of that transaction, stop it, right? There's just a lot, whether you consider it regulatory control policy versus what is tech security, a lot of stuff, if you look at how organizations are penetrated, if they just had a better policy about how they managed keys within their organization, they wouldn't have been hit. And that would never happen at a traditional bank or whatever they're called in the Web3 space, just a normal everyday, banking, company. So, I think that you hit it on the head. It's not just All right. Are you still muted?
I am. No, you're not muted.
You're not muted.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
Right on, man. Yeah. So that's my cool answer.
So then a question from a hacker perspective. What, do you see pain points in Web3? Although there's this beautiful blue sky idealism about decentralization, about self-custody, about autonomy, about banking the unbanked, being your own bank, connecting the unconnected. But from a hacker perspective, do you see in this very, very new emerging market some shortcomings that maybe others don't see? Or how do you transition into something like that, knowing that a lot of the responsibility lies on the people and not the dev, right?
Well, I think that there's a great culture of information sharing in Web3. When it comes to security, it's just a lot of people don't really want to. It's hard to, you can hear it. It's really hard to really practice it in everyday life. And, if you're managing a lot of different assets, if you're really active in doing a lot of, say, trades or transactions of any kind, it's like driving a car. Statistically, the longer you're in one, the more likely it is that you're in an accident, right? I guess kind of the same thing. And that's the user. That's that whole environment. Dev environments, code gets cracked all the time. People find vulnerabilities in people's systems, but I'd say the majority of the money that, say, even North Korea is stealing doesn't come from them going commando mode on someone's system. They attack communities, they insert bad links, they do impersonation scams and LinkedIn job offer, scams and all kinds of things to build the trust to get a link over to your side that you'll click and drain your wallet or connect to whatever platforms you're using and do other things. It's a bummer. Not everyone's cool. So I think for, especially like you were saying, people new into the Web3 scene, I think it's just about finding a way to organize all the things you need to do, whether it's, per transaction, daily, weekly, monthly. Find a cool free tool and automate the way you remind yourself to update your passwords even. Don't just think that you'll manage security. Set something up easy for you and just try to find a way to stick to those plans. There's plenty out there. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it, depending on how you manage wallets, how you do transactions, where you reside, what type of operating system you're using. But it'll always come down to some really basic key things. And that's the good news. The bad news is just you have to practice that all the time, forever. Like a bank.
You brought up a great point, right? Every blockchain startup thinks that they're the next Ethereum or the Ethereum killer. How does cybersecurity, from your perspective, right, make Qualu stand out, right? And then what's so different about you guys and what drew you to the point of difference to stand out from the next project or the next narrative or the next meta, right?
Well, for us being such a data oriented thing, we really do look at global networks and network data and intelligence. That's what we do. So for us, the good thing about security is you need a really big intelligence component. You really need to understand your threats. You need to be automatically pulling in and looking at information, related to what you think is going to affect you, right? we run this, so let's look at this, or we're in this country and we get attacked by this a lot. You just automate the way you look at, even information technology, intelligence, and stuff about viruses or updates and patches, but it all needs to come together into some sort of a workable model. So I think just for most new organizations in Web3, that's just a big thing to get up and going and really make sense of, like, what are our threats, what do we need to digest, and then how do we visualize it? If you can get from start to finish in that, you're really cooking with grease. It's a really important thing.
Nice. And shout out real quick to Oscar, Celine, everybody in the chat. Eduardo, hello guys. Lawrence, we see you. Thanks. Loving it. Want to get into a bit more of it. But one thing that I was thinking about in terms of when you mentioned the model, it's very cool stuff, and it makes me wonder, like, are you guys helping other companies with their security as well? Is that something that you think comes with the network, or walk me through a little bit of that from that perspective, or is that something worth doing, right? That whole educating and bringing everyone on board.
Sure. Well, again, for us, given we specialize at aggregating network intelligence and helping groups make sense of that information to make change, whatever it may be. That's our core thing. So being able to do that with our security tools and help other companies by either giving them some sort of an assessment, a report, using our scanners to help them visualize what's actually going on in their network or on their public facing web assets, social media, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
Getting that cool map of everything that kind of shows you what's going on, right? So we've gotten the pleasure of testing our stuff out with some other collaborators, some test clients, that kind of thing. It's been super interesting. For us, focusing on telco companies, we did finally get to really roll out some security specific test stuff, and that was fun for us, obviously. If you compare what we saw there at this unnamed company, vulnerabilities that we saw, and then you look at what's happening in the United States currently with every major carrier in the country having been penetrated. It's kind of like there's a culture in telco where they're worried about regulation a lot, but it's not security regulation. They're worried about making money. And so I think that, being able to provide them the right insights so they can make better, faster decisions that are cheap for them with, real actionable intel, that's going to, translate into a better, secure environment that it affects all the users everywhere, right? So it's a matter of them adopting new culture, like happens in all industries over time, right?
100%.
So we're just hoping to be part of that change.
Yeah, you see that graph, right? In terms of adoption. And it just gets more and more exponential. We've had Keith on the show before. It's been amazing to hear about Qualu and the app, right? Dex, if you can even go to qualu.io, you can bring up the website where people could go to the wait list. You could sign up for all the work that Davey's doing in the back end. But not only that, you could play a part of something bigger, something that even, like we mentioned earlier, was predate Web3. It's just about, everybody kind of taking that ownership and taking stock and helping each other out so that we can redefine what it means to, like, connect better and make the internet better. So, Davey, I want to talk about one more thing, before, like a general sense from a developer's point of view, before we cut it to a break. And then I want to dive into some of the links and websites that you have later. But if there's any, like, wide-eyed, young, naive Web2 or Web3 developer out there, right? Highly caffeinated, highly motivated, maybe listening right now or commenting. What advice would you give them? Like, what Yoda insights or wisdoms would you share from someone who's just coming into the game?
Update your code base, you must. For sure. Work collaboratively with good people and practice what you preach. Do your very best to implement the right controls at the right time and stick to it. I mean, that's not really advanced advice. It's just people don't do it often enough.
Right. It's not
Right.
even
It's
really
not even really
specific to your
specific to your
discipline, your industry, right? It's actually just workflow, just making sure that you have that habit, that consistency. That's interesting, mate. Yeah. Anything else?
Anything else?
Well,
What would you
Web3
give your
release, I think-
what would you give your like 25-year-old
25-year-old
self?
self.
Oh my gosh. Or just code more. Play with code.
Right,
Play with other
right.
people's code. Talk to people about code. And yeah, AI is going to replace a lot of the need for some of that, but you're still going to need to understand how to build, and you're going to need to understand how to problem solve. And I think that you just make that a natural part of your life, you know, and the supporting math and play with it. There's apps for it now. I would play more with more science. Make yourself more dangerous, more valuable. Have fun.
Love it.
Yeah, man.
Love it. That's
Love
great.
it. That's great.
Guys, we're
Guys, we're
going to
gonna take a
break.
quick
And we're
break,
come back
and we'll
and
come
dive
back
into
and-
Davey's backstory, including all the side gigs. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in a few minutes. And we're back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying with us. We're with Davey from Kualu. And Davey, we want to dive into you as a person. But first, we got a lot of questions in the chat. And
Let's do it.
we have to start with the elephant in the room, or the dinosaur in the room. The first question is, what's with the dinosaur? Now, I know you touched on security. You touched on Kualu. Tell us a little bit about how you're keeping us all safe, and what's with the dinosaur, mate?
Well, you know what it is? I was really excited to do this show with you when you hit me up about it. And I mostly stay behind the keys. I don't do a lot of social media. That's not me. You know, I hang out with my friends. I write cool stuff, right?
Yeah, you make code. You're a code. You're dev.
I'm sorry?
You're just doing dev stuff.
Yeah. I like hanging out, right? So it was one of the only pictures I had that actually the camera settings were right and it was like clear. That's just what I had on hand. You know, I don't really have a lot of professional pictures that are good for something like this. It's kind of funny. Yeah.
I think
Plus,
it represents. I think it represents everything that you're keeping us safe from, Davey. I think you're doing a great job. You're the Dr. Grant of Web3. You know.
No, wow. Look, fortunately, on the real, what we've got is a dev team with some really very interesting experience and a really unique set of skills, great people, and we're building security controls into the product as it's being built out. You know, our lead architect, project managers, and everyone involved in the thing, to include the founder, has had that in mind from the off. Obviously, the value of what we're trying to do for the whole world is something that not everyone would like potentially, or they would want to piggyback our network or steal our data for one reason or another. We are not going to have that. We want to protect our user community. We care about it. We need them so that this can grow and build and run. So I think for us, security was just a basic necessity to grow something at the scale that we're actually trying to from the off, something this important and like utilitarian, right? Yeah. That's another reason I wanted to come on board. It's like there was a place for me and a cool place to build, right?
And that's what it's all about, right? It's just finding how you can fit in and contribute to something bigger than yourself, right? We got a question from Oscar Dex. If you want to pull it up, that'd be great. It's a big one, right? How do guys think regular people, right, breaking into the industry, right? How could someone benefit from Web3? I mean, we could probably look at that from a lens of Qualu and a DeepEnd lens, right? But to remove the fancy name, like Oscar's alluding to, how does one benefit from being involved, right? He talks about trading or holding, talks about Web3 in general. For me, Oscar, I'm going to dive in and just kind of front run the question and say Web3 is the ownership era, right? You've liberated what we determine is valuable. So if you look at Web 1 is like we liberated information, the way we can consume and share information. Web 2 is kind of like the social media web, where we were able to liberate communication, like Skype and this right now. But Web3, I think we're going to liberate something different, and that's what we perceive as value. That could be NFTs, that could be nodes on a network, that could be a DAO or a meme coin. But it's the perception of value that's going to be able to be liberated. And I think that's how you could benefit, Oscar, from Web3. It's not about trading, it's not about holding. It's actually about active participation, because Web3 is the ownership era, right? You're actively participating and you're determining what's valuable because you actually have skin in the game. And I think that's where again, what Davey touched on earlier, security comes in. But for any new user out there thinking that this is like a very complicated bridge or barrier, you probably didn't look into like how money works or how you're currently interacting with your bank or with your online transfers overseas. So yeah, Oscar, thanks for the question. Davey, I want you to give your insights on it. As a regular person, how could someone benefit from Web3?
Well, I'm really interested in DeepEnd projects because I think they're tangible and cool. I like the way they work. So, I think for someone like Oscar, what's rad is that there are so many projects you can contribute to just by downloading their software or getting a node from them or a device and getting involved that way. But if you're someone that wants to maybe build your own stuff or interact with your own systems, there's a lot of DeepEnd projects that provide, compute space or storage or a lot of the that ownership portion that Nick's talking about. That translates to a lot of other portions of IT now, right? And so there's a lot of projects you might find interesting where there are traditional services that you'll actually benefit from a different dynamic by it being in Web3. Something like maybe your data hosting or where you want to store something or make something available for the public, whatever it may be. There's just so many things that I think Web3 applies to depending on what your needs are. And I super encourage you to check them out, like especially on the DeepEnd side, because again, they're systems you can physically contribute to networks and value and data. And I think that's one of the most interesting and fun ways to play with stuff that isn't trading, in my opinion.
100%. And I think one place to start for those who are unfamiliar with the term DeepEnd is the DeepEnd Hub. And that is something that is kind of like an aggregator of all the projects out there. It's a great bird's eye view of what's happening in the space. And maybe, Dex, we could bring something around the DeepEnd Hub. I know Qualu is featured on the DeepEnd Hub. Here we go. Yeah, there we are. And what the DeepEnd Hub is it's kind of like a database for DeepEnd projects that give you a snapshot of who they are, what they do, what related projects are happening around them,
resources, events, podcasts, all sorts of stuff. So I would highly recommend you pop over to the DeepN Hub. Go give the Kualu page a look. But what you're talking about, Davey, is something that is easy to understand for a non-Web3 user, right? You're making an experience better. And if you look at things without talking about DeepN, if you just look at it from the decentralized side of things,
Sure.
Airbnb did this to hotels. Grab or Uber did this to taxis, right? No one's really done this yet for the internet. And if you look at the same pattern of disruptive innovation, it's poised to happen. And what better way to do it through the community and the movement that is DeepN. And I say that not lightly, right? There's a lot of really major players that are really trying to change the game and make the experience for users better, whether you're in gaming, connectivity, telecom, or all of the above, right? I think what you're going to see is like maybe DeepN becomes the gateway to mass adoption. Maybe it's not NFTs, right? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe it's not monkey photos and cartoon pictures on the blockchain. Maybe it's something that everybody could participate in and everyone could get incentivized in. But I guess my question would be like, thoughts on that? Thoughts on the future of DeepN, and thoughts on how more listeners out there could get incentivized maybe, or get more involved with Kualu, whether that's just,
Well, I mean, I gotta selfishly say you should definitely sign up for our nodes and our mobile app. That's just that's going to be fun. So right now the wait list for the mobile app's up and going. We're really excited to have people onboarded soon. A lot of rad features, great tests, and the best thing about it is you're able to contribute to the whole world having better internet, so that we can help run tests, aggregate data, and provide insights for both users, for companies, and really go out there and make some positive change. So definitely check us out, because we're the coolest, obviously, and I'm really into it. We're excited to try to onboard as many people as we can, so we can all work together and make this change, man. It's going to be great. But there, like you said, if you go through DeepN Hub, there are a lot of cool projects, and some of those projects, like there are some DeepN projects that you're hosting something, but the people using that service don't host it. So they've got kind of a two-sided thing, right? Some people want to use AI, and other people want to get incentivized to host some processing power for AI or some other service, right? And so there's so many different dynamics and ways to get involved in this new ownership, I think, dynamic, as you were saying. That's exciting. Again, I'm really part of the DeepN because it's cool, right?
Absolutely. It's real, right? It's in the name, right? It's physical, right? So that is something tangible. So for those of you out there that want to dive deeper into what Davey talked about with the nodes, right? Check out the early access page on Kualu. If you go to kualu.io, it's up in the top right-hand side. You just log in, share your socials, join the community. And
please come hang out with us.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Yeah. We have another question in the chat from Anne. The question is, can you explain how a front-running attack in a DEX, decentralized exchange, works, and how developers can defend against it?
Well, it depends on the platform for the DEX and where they're getting hit. And I think that it also depends on how targeted the attack is. Okay. What's funny is that you'd assume that a large group getting penetrated was a targeted attack, and sometimes they're the victims of just clicking a link in a community like anyone else. It just happened to be from a machine inside of that organization.
Yeah,
that's a
bummer. Maybe just someone else, right? Like, how important is it to lock up like someone's Notion or Google Drive or data room, right? I mean, we talk about that a lot in terms of like what platform someone uses, right? But spill the tea a little bit also on like what's some secret sauce that people out there could use to protect themselves better.
Well, I'm a big fan of intelligence. I like to know what's going on, right? So if I think I'm going to say enter a new market or a new region or something, I'll research it as much as I can. If I'm attacking a network and doing testing to look for vulnerabilities, or I'm even looking at our own network at Qualu, which we do
Yeah.
every single day, right? All day, all night.
Yeah.
You want tools that are like going to help save time in your day, so you have more day to practice more security, to do more things, to check that fence again, look through those logs again, right? Just practice what you preach, right? It's complicated. Sure. So we focus a lot on automation as we scale, on the ability to like aggregate lots of security data and simplify it so we can quickly take action anywhere inside of our infrastructure. And that takes a lot of tuning. So it's not something you ever build and set down. It's something that we will interact with like an organism for life, for the duration of our user communities and product. That's just kind of how it goes. Cat and mouse game, enjoyable.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about is your ability to jump across industries and use those transferable skills in a way that has brought you to to this point. But I mean, as amazing as it is to hear about how humble it is to see your Web3 journey evolve, you have quite the credentials, mate. Talk me or walk me through a little bit about like your background.
Sure, man.
From the US, and SpaceX or NASA. What happened there? Did you turn someone down from NASA? There's a lot here that we need to unpack.
Yeah, man. I benefited from having the right friends that cared about me. And when I was just a little Padawan youngling, which I still consider myself a student, but I met someone that became my mentor and went from I'm coding for free and trying and learning and doing whatever I can, like really getting into it, to we're going to go work at the Marine Corps, to we're going to go work at Space and Naval Warfare, Honeywell Aerospace, you name it. I got to follow a better man than I around and stick to the learning, right? The path. And so I lucked out. I got in with some rad hackers off the rip, and methodical people that focus on a lot of actionable, insight-oriented stuff. Obviously, my mentor now is off doing very rad stuff to help people stay safe, investigations, etc. We've both worked with a lot of private investigators, law firms all over the United States and in Europe. Now that I'm out here in Asia, I'm working with a larger variety of clients, which is super fun. But my main focus at the moment is Qualu, and will continue to be for years. I think I'm really locked in on this project, and it's just where I want to be. And whether it's a month from now or 3 years from now, what's on my plate or what could be as we get more built, it's enough for me. Like, it's exciting. It'll change a lot, and it'll always be challenging and difficult. So it's going to be rad. Yeah.
Super rad.
Yeah. So I don't know. I went from kind of a military and defense contracting background, aerospace background, into more legal field operations, private investigations. Then I started a small company that helped federal inmates keep in touch with their families. Wow. Legally hacking big telephone networks so that we could get local phone numbers close to a prison. When the inmate would call it, we would forward the call to his grandma, so she doesn't have to pay some exorbitant rate. It just bills at the local permanent rate. So we did take a lot of money out of the Fed's pocket but they don't charge the inmate, they charge the family. Sure. So we charged for a service that saved people 80% on their bills and made it where they could afford to talk more, which is important when you're trying to get reintegrated or get access to education, legal counsel, etc. The way that they manage that one utility they have, the phone, it's very important. So, I've been into telecom networks in a very different way than our founder, Keith, for a long, long time. He's just an expert in them. So what's cool is like, I understand what we're trying to do, and everything I don't, he already knows, or someone else in the company knows, and then we implement. But I've always had a big interest in this kind of stuff, even way, way back when I was a bit more of like a cyberpunk kind of,
that's the beautiful part. Yeah, but that's the beautiful part about the cyberpunk movement, right? Like, everybody there was standing on the shoulders of giants, right? So who are some people that maybe you want to give a shout out to, or some of the people that helped you along the way prior to even Qualu and Keith, but or maybe even within the team itself currently, but like what are some of those things along the way that stand out for you in terms of mentors?
Well, I'd say My sensei Bones, you know, the Natutism is he is a rad dude with a good heart. He's a teacher by trade, a real Jedi master, someone that has the emotional patience to teach.
Nice.
And the understanding to know how best to explain things to different people and why. A guy that listens more than he speaks. He's rad. So obviously, that's my big shout. Noxie, Chuck's 86, you know, Rudes, Shell One, a lot of really cool guys that help me out all throughout my.
Now, are these guys from Marine
All over
Corps,
the
from SpaceX? Whereabouts?
Man, Civi dude, some other people from you know, people we interact with in the Marines. And I think that you know, now that everyone's grown up, everyone's moved all over the world. You know, I'm in my 40s now, so we're a lot more spread out than we were, and so we benefit from a lot more knowledge now that we share when we're able to link up, which is rad.
Absolutely.
Yeah, big shouts to those guys. It's Lawrence's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Lawrence.
It's his birthday right now, so huge shouts to him, man.
Huge shout out to Lawrence, listening,
Right?
commenting below. Happy birthday to Lawrence. Davey, what can we expect from a dev's perspective, from a product perspective? What alpha, what tea can you spill? What should the fans of Qualu look forward to moving forward?
Well, I'll say this. Us at Qualu, what we look forward to is being able to interact with the community that's already started to grow, these supporters, and start to get the mobile app and the nodes in their hands, the tools that we all need out there to be able to make the internet a better place for everyone. You know, something that actually does what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it all the time, and it's quality. And that's something that providers want, that users want. That's what you can look forward to from us. And
Absolutely.
we're going to really enjoy working with all of you guys out there on it. I think that's
the guardians of the internet is what it becomes. Like, that's what you can look forward to.
Join us. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Join our wait list, man. Come hang out with us. Come hang out with us on Telegram and Discord for sure. A lot of cool people. You can ask questions. You can learn. Just what's crazy about our community, there's a lot of people just literally taking a lot of time to explain to new Web3 users even about Web3. There's a lot of that going on, even, or explaining what DeepIn is or how we're a DeepIn project and why. They're doing all of that. It's just love, support. So,
I agree.
come hang out, be a part of that.
Value.
We'd love to have you.
Yeah, 100%. Great value to be a part of the Qualu network, a part of the Qualu community. Do go over to the website, sign up for the early access to the wait list. Report all your security problems, or if you lose your private keys, just write to davey@qualu.io, and then he will fix everything. From what I understand, like, that's his role. And anytime your internet cuts out, he's your guy.
Yeah.
Never
email me.
Like, seriously, any other things you want to touch on here before we wrap up? I'm grateful for all the listeners who stuck through. Thank you, Keith. We see you. Appreciate the comment. Thanks, Anne, for the question. Oscar.
Absolutely.
Riley.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah. Muzegan, thank you so much, because Davey touched on it earlier, but like, what happens in the Discord and Telegram of Qualu is also what Muzegan is doing, and we're all stronger together. So shout out to Muzegan and Jonathan for allowing us to do this podcast. Dex in the background, really appreciate you, mate, throwing up links, throwing up websites. If you could throw up the waitlist app one more time, that'd be awesome, because we could close out on that. And
absolutely,
massive shout out to Davey for walking us through your own personal journey, what attracted you to Qualu, and how we can all make the internet better together, right? It starts with being early, right? But it starts with having that conviction of also just being an early adopter who wants to participate in Web3, right? Not stand on the sidelines and read about it, but actually take ownership over their own journey. And Davey, mate, we could probably talk about this for hours and hours, right? But it's been a pleasure.
My friend.
Yeah. Shout out to Viet as well. Do
me.
you have a question? Was it another question? No, hold on. No, shout out to Ha. Okay. As an educator, this is a great comment though. As an educator, I'm excited for Qualu's project. I believe internet
is education, and the more we can have, the better internet worldwide, the more people can get access to education. Cheers, guys. 100%. Like what
Absolutely.
Qualu's doing and what Deepan is doing and what Davey alluded to many times over is that this isn't just affecting people who have MetaMask wallets or OceanSea accounts. Like these are people affecting everybody, everyday users. And you need the internet now to thrive in the modern economy, right? So what you're doing with Qualu when you're making the internet better together is you're actually transcending and accelerating education, small business, GDP for certain countries, tourism. I think it's impacting everything, digital infrastructure. And I think that is what makes me super bullish on Qualu. It's why, David, we can talk all night about this kind of stuff. And I'm happy that you are standing firm as one of the guardians of the internet, mate, because you're a great chat. And check out Davey and reach out and to Muzegan, to me, and find out how you can help be involved and make the internet better together.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you.
That's it, guys. We'll see you next week. Shout out to Davey, Qualu, Jonathan, Muzegan, Dex, Rachel, everyone in the background. Appreciate all the questions, and we will still reach out to anyone else who has a question later on in the stream.
All right. Thanks again, man. Great chatting with you.
Likewise, man. I really appreciated it. We got to do it again soon, man. Thank you. And happy birthday, Lawrence, man. I hope you guys have a great time. Yeah.
Okay, my guy.
Good.